regardless of maybe a little bit of a rental adjustment, it's a pretty um, a pretty market safe. I wouldn't say safe, but at least it's a good hedge in during market cycles.
I think it's pretty well insulated, and one of those reasons, Aaron, is that the diversity of the tenants too. You're dealing with not only. I think when people think self storage, they think it's just home goods. It's just your old stuff that you didn't want to throw away. But we're dealing with businesses. We're dealing
Hmm.
with retail. We're dealing with a lot of small businesses now. People start these side hustles, and they have inventory. They have requirements that has to be stored off site. You have obviously people moving. You have the death and divorce. You have military transfers, and so there's just a large diversity of why people are using storage, and so I think that's always helpful depending on where you build.
That's an excellent point. What about management? Do you manage in house? Do you hire a management firm once these places are either turned over or erected?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I really like to focus on my zone of genius, and my zone of genius is deal acquisition and deal development. That's what
Hmm.
we're great at. So we really set up our business from the very beginning to build only Class A facilities, usually 80,000 square foot and larger. Almost always have climate control, or they're all climate control, and we do it that way because we work hand in hand with the REITs, and the REITs like CubeSmart and Extra Space actually do the management for us, and to the point where we bring them on early stage during underwriting to compare the markets. If they're in that market and they might have 10 stores in a 20-mile radius,
Hmm.
they can tell us, is it too saturated? What are your rates? What's the demand? What's this store look like? And how fast did that store fill up or ramp up? And so it gives us kind of a unique look. When we think that we've found a great site, it's always good for us to be able to run it by them and get their kind of blessing. But then ultimately, we let them manage it too. And so, and there's really nobody better in the business than the big guys. They control pay per click, they control Google. They are really um, advanced at finding leads online. And then, of course, they keep the staff in the store as well, and they manage the people.
That's not a bad thing. Yeah, why fight them, right?
That's exactly what I said.
So, how about some of the challenges in in this industry? Like there certainly aren't as many storage facilities as there are single family homes or even apartment buildings. So saturation uh, or population has got to be an issue.
It's the first thing we look for. I want to make sure there's at least 60,000 people in a 5 mile radius, or 3 mile radius rather. And then I look at their income demographics. We look at what the rental rates are in competing stores. We look at what the occupancy rates are in competing stores. So before we even do deep dive due diligence on a project, we're always looking at those four things before we start.
I imagine you look for something, an area with more than just one major industry or economy or one business.
Absolutely, we love diversification of business as well. I mean, if we can get into, we're not usually in urban areas. I'm not in a lot of cities. We're usually right outside of cities.
Hmm.
For example, we sold one last year that was 20 miles from Philadelphia. Um, but yes, we love to have technology and manufacture. It'd be great to have all of those different industries in the area. It certainly helps support our outcome.
I'd love to go even deeper on this because, like I said, I'm a nut for real estate in general and just about everything involved. But I'd like to shift gears just a little bit into the coaching business of yours. But before I do, wanted to ask if somebody wanted to get in started in self storage, where would should they start? Like, how do they start learning about self storage, and how would they, as a new person, new investor, try to acquire one?
It's like anything, Aaron. I don't, if it's single family, if it's self storage, if it's apartments, uh, the art is in the start, right? We have to start somewhere and take some action. I recommend that if students want to get into self storage, they first start by deciding what's the goal, what's the outcome, right? Do you
Hmm.
want to buy one facility? Do you want to own 10 facilities? Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to pay a manager? There's a lot of trying to understand the industry first and how it operates, and then get involved. And the magic of big developments like what we do is there's often a lot of partners. There could be the person who found the site, the person who develops the site, the person that brings the financing, the person that manages the site after the fact. And so, I think one of the best ways for somebody new to get into the business is find an operator and help them locate some sites that they can get a piece of the deal for doing the legwork, and then learn as you grow and have that mentor, get you into the business.